Hello, welcome back to Haiku tutorial. In this video, we're going to move on to the counting operation in database. I've cleared the previous data in this database and inserted some new one because the previous one is a little bit messy, so that we can have a better demonstration for today. Same thing, we're going to create a wrap to hold the services for counting. Select the database as our target, and inside this counting section, we have group by count, count distinct, sum one field, and average one field. This group by operation is a little bit more complicated, so we'll leave it for the last part and start with this count. We have actually met this count operation before in the previous video where we retrieved data from the database. It is as simple as counting the number of entries that satisfies the specific conditions, and it returns the number of the counted records. And to better demonstrate counting operations for today's video, I'm going to add an extra field to this database. So assume the event organizer offers a few packages of activities for people to sign up for. So the field name will be activities, activity, and confirm. And inside this new column, let's say, assume this first person registered for activity A, and this one for B, and this one A also, and B, and B, and this one C. Save the database. Then I will use the count service to get the number of participants for different activities. So for the output parameters, I will have, for example, the number of people who joined the package A and the number of people who joined B. And for this counting action, select a column, and I will select the activity, which equals to A, add a callback where we can get the result. And for the A's value, we have this result, which is the counting result. And what about the number for B? Here we can simply do this counting action again. So the database and count, select activity column and count the records that equals to B. Okay, but this time we will need a data hub to store this result for B. So add a numeric variable, and this will be the B attendee. And in the callback of this counting B action, the target will be this, and set its value to the result. And there, when the next counting action is done, we can set the B account from this numeric variable. Now we can debug, and we're having this A count 2 and B count 3, and it matches the result what we have in the database, 3 for B and 2 for A. So this is the most basic count operation. And let's add another service for, let's see what is the next service. So it is called count distinct. So what does this mean? It reads, the count distinct action only counts the number of distinct values in specific fields of entries that satisfies the condition. So it doesn't count the duplicated field values. For example, I want to know how many activities are chosen. I may offer a lot of activities, but people only sign up for A, B, and C. In this case, the fields will be activity, and inside callback, set the current service's output to result. Debug, and it shows chosen X is 3 because inside the database, people sign up for A, B, and C, so 3 types of activities. The repeated values will not be taken into account. Going on to add another service, and this previous one is for the count distinct. And this new one will be sum one field. What this one does is quite apparent by its name, so it sums the value of one column. And you can see it only allows us to select from fields of data ID and age. This is because when you want to sum one field, you have to set the field type to numbers. You can only perform calculation with numbers, and it doesn't make any sense to get the sum of a bunch of strings. So make sure you have a numeric field before you try to get the sum of it. This is the sum one field service. Give it an output and call it simply sum. And for the field name, we are going to sum up the age. Callback and set the current service output to the result. So here it shows us the sum of all the participants' ages, which equals to 150. And for the counting and many other operations in the database, we can set the condition, some constraints to the operation. So for example, I will only sum up the age of the participants who are older than, say, 40 years old. And now it shows the sum is 45 because we only have one participant who is older than 40 years old, and this person is at the age of 45. And then we can get the average of one field. Set an output parameter called average, and still use the field of age. This will give us average equals 45 because of this constraint, and we only have one person who is above this 40 years old. And when I change this to smaller than, and now the average age is 21 years old, which I suppose should match what we have here. We can also cross out this constraint, this condition, and this will be the average age without constraints. Now we've come to the last and the powerful one, group by action. What is this group by action used for? Let me give you a scenario. Say I want to know how many participants each activity has, respectively. How are you going to get that statistics? You may recall that we have done that a few moments ago in this count service, but this is only under the condition that we have known that we are counting for A, B, and C. So we counted once for B and once for A, and maybe another time for C. But what if we are counting from a blind box? We don't know their choices, or there are too many groups making it impossible to count it again and again. This is when we need the group by action. In the given scenario, we are looking for the number of participants for each activity, so we are grouping them by activities. And in this session, we select the output we need, and in this case, it is also the activity. the number of participants for the activity. And we will use this count method. And before we move on to debug and see the output, notice the settings for the group by operation is kind of similar to those of selecting and outputting from database. This tells us that the result or output of this group by operation will be in the form of matrix object. Going on to add an output parameter, and set the output. Here we should select matrix object and value. And go directly to debug. Let's see what it looks like. In this output, it seems to be telling us we have an activity that has 1 participant, and another which has 2, and another which has 3, but this is actually very confusing. The solution to this is to add here another aggregation, same activity, but leave the method to none. Debug again. Now we can tell this is the count for C and this is the count for A and B. Another application for this group by is, say, to get the age distribution of the participants. Let's try this. Select the database and group by. This time they will be grouped by their ages, so select age, and the aggregation will also be age. Going on to the output, remember to choose matrix object, then the value. Debug. I forgot to select this as the age. And then it outputs the ages that we have and how many people are at each age. The age distribution can be quite diverse, so in this scenario, the group by operation offers us a convenient way to get the information. And let me offer you one last case. Also, I'd like to invite you to first try it out by yourself. And that is to get the average age of the participants for each activity. Add new action, and we will still use the group by action. This time I am grouping them by activities, so the grouping fields will be activities. But as for the aggregations or the output, I'm going to calculate the average age, so this field will be the age. And I'm going to get the average. Also add another line in this session for clearer display. This field should be consistent with this grouping fields. And leave the method to none. And for the callback, current service, result, matrix object, value, and go to debug. And now we have people who selected A have an average age of 21, and for B, 27.6667, and for participants of activity C, 25. Let's look at the database. So the first and third person selected A, and their average would be 21. So it is correct. We can also go back to set some constraints to this group by action. For example, I will only take into account those who are younger than 40 years old. Now the average age for people who selected B changes to 19 years old, because we have this Carl who is 45 years old and selected B, and is now excluded from the calculation. That is how we can use the action of group by, and you'll better understand it through practice. And that is all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.